I heard crying. It was sharp enough to wake me up in the middle of the night, but soft. It sounded like a small child. It wasn't in my room, but it was in my house. I walked gingerly down the stairs and nearly slipped in something sticky. I flicked on the light, and I instantly regretted it. Littering the floor were body parts. Body parts severed from, could it be, my own daughter. Dark, sticky, dried crimson blood coated the stairs, floor, walls, and some on the ceiling. I held in vomit, and tears streamed down my face. I quietly stepped into the kitchen. The crying got louder. It was a small boy, seated on the floor with his head in his hands. He cocked quickly toward me, and he stared at me with empty black eye sockets. He sat up and began walking toward me. His human form was flickering around the edges, like something that the brain couldn't perceive. I stood, frozen in fear, as I realized he was coated in the same blood that was splattered around the downstairs of my house. He gently took my hand in his and dragged me out the front door of my house towards the woods by where I live. He dragged me further into the dark cover of the bush and trees. My mind was numb. I don't know how much time passed before we came upon a small shed in the middle of a clearing. It was pitch black outside. The door creaked open, and I tripped over a high doorstep and hit the floor. My head turned to look up. There were boxes, cardboard boxes, each containing many of a different type of body part. They were labeled in sloppy, kindergarten-esque handwriting. I glanced over at the one with the misspelled word heads, with a backwards E, filled with mutilated heads of children, adults, and even animals. I turned back towards the child, who stared blankly at me. Does he expect me to do something? He took my hand once more and pulled me over a table in the shed. Once again, I felt as if I was not in control of my actions. My mind was completely empty. There were no straps or restraints on the table. He handed me a rusty saw. I lifted it to my upper arm and began to move it back and forth. I felt so much pain, but I could not scream, nor run, nor move aside from the monotonous back and forth movement of the coping saw across my bicep. The tendons began to pop, and warm blood flowed endlessly as what seemed to be possessing me grew impatient. I gripped my barely hanging arm by the wrist and tore. I tore as hard as I could, and the arm ripped completely off. I went into shock, but still my body walked up to the box labeled Arm Z. The child looked at me expectantly. Emotionlessly, I dropped my arm into the box as my shoulders spewed thick red liquid. I laid back down on the table, tears streaming down my face, but my face remained stolid. I took the saw once more and, bit by bit, sawed off all but my head. The child picked up my 2 legs and remaining arms and sorted them into the corresponding boxes. I cried but didn't cry, screamed but couldn't scream. I was bleeding out all over the table. The child took the saw that had caused me so much agony and began to carefully cut away at my neck. I was still exploding in sheer anguish, but no noise nor facial expressions appeared. I lay there, unable to move, and he pulled my hardly attached head from the last tendon in my neck with a snap. My head was still seeing. I stared sadly back at my torso, coated in blood. He dropped me into the box full of heads, and the last conscious part of me came to a horrible realization. How did I not see it before? These body parts were still alive. The arms crawled around and tried to pull themselves out of the box they were confined to, but to no avail. The heads continued to breathe and blink. They could not speak. Their faces were as stolid as mine. My eyes shifted to the side. My daughter, her detached head sat still next to mine. We looked at each other with no emotion. To this day, we are still here, breathing, watching together forever.